Hi, this is Peggy from WAR. So our guest today is Sue Britton. So Sue first is a very good friend of mine. So I'm very excited to have her with us today. She's the founder and CEO of a Fintech growth syndicate. So FGS is a Fintech advisory firm. They work with some of the largest tech companies and the largest financial institutions as well, helping them innovate their product offering. So they have deep expertise in fintech. So we are very fortunate to have you with us today, Sue.
Oh, I'm so glad that you invited me. I've been watching your videos, and it's great. I miss you too as a as a friend. So it's both excited to kind of chat with you, and also it's nice to see you.
It's such a great opportunity for me to do both, see my friend,
Yeah.
interview them. That's extremely efficient. So let's go through the first question. So from your perspective, what will be some of the major lasting impacts of COVID in the financial services industry?
Yeah, so I really think right now, no one would question that we have to have access to everything we need digitally. I mean, that just, that first couple of weeks when we were all, sent home and no one had groceries, or, you needed to change plans, everything, nothing could be done in person. And so I think, it's taken what may have taken 10 years, and it's really, made that agenda, something that has just happened. So, and I think with that, there are some things where, we have changed our behaviors and we won't change them back, right? So consumers and businesses, I think we'll see, kind of in hindsight, when we start to look at the impact on consumers and businesses, I think we'll see some really specific changes that aren't going to come back when, as my 19-year-old says, we will get back to normal. And so yeah, I think, and then, to make that more specific, in the financial services industry in Canada and all of those, players that support the financial services industry, I think now there's really only one key barrier for competition, and that is the regulation. And so I feel very strongly now that, that is going to create a whole bunch of new pressure to deal with, regulations. I think there's going to be some positives that will come out of that, and I think there also will be some negatives. And the negatives in part are due to the fact that our government very much makes change based on the political will of our leaders, and our leaders, generally speaking, are more concerned about, the financial stability of our banks than they are about our, burgeoning tech community in financial services anyway.
Yeah. So we're jumping the gun to my second questions, which was about regulations.
Yeah.
And if you're seeing new regulation coming down the pipe, as you can imagine, most people are referring to open banking, because people are like, oh my God, that's been delayed again. What's your perspective? I think you gave us a soundbite already, but do you want to elaborate a bit on regulations and maybe open banking?
Absolutely. So regulations in general, I mean, you have to be a financial institution in Canada to do a whole bunch of things. Tech companies can't, they either have to work through them, or, there's a few exceptions that are outside of that. And so, there's a lot of activity. It was already underway in payments. Payments modernization is, nearing a point, I think, where we'll start to see changes to the Payments Act, proposals to open up membership to Payments Canada, which therefore means access. Unfortunately, I don't think we're very close to seeing, the real-time rail come to market. I think that's still, unfortunately, a few years away. But I did see that someone has applied for a license for a payments bank in Canada. So that would be very cool.
Okay, that's exciting.
Yeah, that could be a game changer. And so payments will absolutely over the next couple of years it will keep people busy. With open banking, and you know what, I can't call it consumer directed finance. It's too complicated. So I will continue calling it open banking. I actually think there are two distinct things happening. One is that the regulators did actually, I mean, really, truly, this all comes down to the Minister of Finance, the policymakers and the staff and others who are involved in consulting with industry, but also doing the work of getting us to a point where open banking might be able to be laid out and decided upon and implemented. They have been delayed, and I think there has been some indication with the last economic update that they put aside a very small amount of money to essentially pay to develop the framework and to do the consultations with industry. And I think a lot of that was probably driven by, kind of making open banking overly complex for Canada. This is just my personal view. I think, we started down a path of saying, well, account aggregation services or scraping or whatever, I think the uninformed view was just that's not safe and not secure. And so, I mean, you saw probably YG's from Flinks, his recent announcement about funding, and he talked about 1 in 3 Canadians have a connection through Flinks, and it's like, okay, well, that's a lot more than people realize. So what's happening while the regulators are taking time to slowly and carefully create the new rules and consult with industry is the banks are moving ahead. So, and what they're moving ahead to do is to put themselves in a stronger position than they were to create more value in their offering so that they retain their customers if and when this all does open up. And then, the good and the bad side is, they're working on, so you might have seen an announcement, I think it was just yesterday, that FDX has launched a chapter in Canada. We're part of FDX. There's a group of non-financial institution players, that's what we are, and a group of financial institutions, and together we make up the Canadian chapter. But that is actually being driven by 2 of the Canadian banks that operate in the US market. So, there's still a very heavy hand from the FIs. And I think that we should expect to see them change things in advance of regulations. So that will be in their favor, which makes sense from their point of view. So yeah, I think it's going to be really a really busy couple of years. And I do think actually quite a bit will happen this year. It is 2020 after all.
Well, and we're almost end of July, beginning of August. So
I know, I can't believe it.
Yeah, exactly. But no,
Yeah.
I hear you. And the thing as well is you see how helpful the banks have been in doling out the capital. So that gives them, again, even more, I would say, special interest to negotiate with the government. So, it's difficult to ask one to do something and after, bang them.
I know. But, and I mean, the cynical side of me to that comment says, okay, the government needed to do their job to distribute, relief to Canadians and to businesses, just like every government all over the world, right? We're in a pandemic. There's nothing special about, doing that. That wasn't unique to Canada. we weren't extra generous. I mean, I shouldn't really probably go on, but because I'm not an expert in that, but my point is that, they took the safest route possible and said, this money will get to Canadians through the financial institutions.
Yeah.
And technically today we pay them a lot of money as individuals and businesses to do that. So good thing you did your job, right? Like, I don't know if I give them a huge pat on the back for that. I still think that the whole topic of getting access to funds as a business, like, I believe that, the banks just got a whole bunch of new small business customers, right?
Yeah.
It's a heyday for them because, what was it? Just under 700,000 businesses received the loan, with the certain amount that was forgivable. That's a whole lot of small businesses in Canada, and likely many of them would not have had a loan product with a bank, right? Because we know that small businesses generally are not well served by our Canadian FIs. So I think they're getting a pretty good deal out of the whole thing. Personally, I don't think it was a hardship. They made pretty good money. We're all paying for things like, really it's the government that, is the one that's going to have to figure this out years from now, right?
Yeah.
But anyway.
So shifting to government and debt and what we're going to all be paying in the future. So where do you think the global financial order is gonna go in the near future following the pandemics? We've seen obviously a lot of debt, potential inflation, low interest rate, obviously protectionism, this whole shebang. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think they're for sure. I'm not an economist. I would have loved to have, been more knowledgeable on these types of topics. But I think, from our vantage point, which is, looking at the need to innovate and the need to, embrace competition and look at new entrants as indications of what customers want. I think this other parts of the world are much further ahead than Canada in modernizing their technology or their you could go as far as to use the examples of like China and other parts of Asia or the UK, where this topic has been a core topic for a long time before the pandemic. So it's like us accelerating things from being behind to where we are now versus them. It's just kind of like, anyway, I think that so I can't really comment on the economic impact, but I don't think the pandemic and our use of digital is going to do anything to create more risk. I really don't. I think that's generally the topic of working with startups or using apps or things like that they're not secure is just a way to diffuse the real conversation about them, and that they're actually leveraging technology that's probably more solid and more safe than some of our legacy institutions. So I think that is going to be fine. I think the issue is going to be I think everyone's going to have to really look hard at their costs and their workforce. And I think we're going to see huge potential reductions in, and that this was something that was coming. I mean, it was something that things like artificial intelligence and robotic process automation and all those things were driving towards the elimination of the need for so many people. But digital just puts a big bow on the top of that, right? So,
and if you look at FI with low interest rate again for the foreseeable future, you put even,
Yeah.
continuous pressure. So if you look at the competitive landscape, you work with all types of players, all size of players. Who do you think, or maybe what DNA do you think will be
Yeah.
winning in that new race?
Oh, yeah. And, I was thinking of that question, and, I wish I could name one of our large financial institutions. I mean, I think, you could just look, like, as an outsider, you look at banks who are offering innovative products and services, and, there's a few that stand out. I mean, RBC would be one, and but I don't actually think that they're as well positioned as, frankly, our large technology companies that are achieving a lot of success right now, like Shopify, Square, PayPal, and then our tech giants, right? Google, Apple. I think this unfortunately just makes that competitive threat even greater for them, because, like, the worst competition, I think, is where you have, big players with big customer bases competing on technology and cost. And, you do that, you compare someone like, I don't know, a bank to someone like Shopify. I mean, game over, right?
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
That's I think really kind of and I say unfortunately, just because I think there will be some fintechs who will do really well. And, we're seeing, like, On Deck just got purchased this week. Like, there's some that will have great exits, and their products will go on to, become bigger and better and greater. But the vast majority, I don't think, are going to be able to compete.
Yeah, I can see some consolidation, acquisition, bankruptcies. Unfortunately, I agree with you. And so, in terms of digital transformation, where do you see the FIs going? And maybe these FIs, we spoke about RBC, which is usually in Canada, the one in the US, JP Morgan Chase, and where do you see this maybe more innovative FI going?
I think that the more innovative FI is actually going to take a page out of Google and Apple's playbook. And I think that means, really quickly going into adjacent spaces, not making it all about, financial products, but also about non-financial products, and really servicing the customer needs, not their own bottom line. So, and I think a lot of money can be made that way. So it's just it may be a different way of making money, right? And how many times have you been either in conferences, or have you read stuff where it talks about the Amazon of banking, right? Or the Apple App Store of banking. But I think the reality is, like, we are all so, like, if anything, we are time strapped, we are convenience hungry, we want to save money, we want a good experience. Like, I think that's the banks, the FIs that realize that, and I think they are doing that, maybe coming at it because of things like open banking that threaten them. But I think that, that to me makes the most sense, right? Moving forward. And I think that's what we're seeing in other parts of the world. So.
Thank you. That's a very, very good perspective. And last question, but not least, what did you change in your life during the pandemic? Did you pick up new habits? We have
Yeah, no kidding. There's only so much time you can sit, around not, and I think I was, because we spend a lot of time in payments, and people are talking about, how retail payments have actually increased, right? Like after business, when business started to come back, it became, oh, I'm sitting around in my house, I want to renovate it now. I want to,
Exactly.
right? Like all that stuff that I don't know that we necessarily expected. Like there's things that just are hard to get. I actually, and you're asking me personally, are you, as opposed to professionally?
You can
Both?
answer both ways, so
I'm gonna say it's kind of gotten me back to, like enjoying spending time gardening and doing things like
yeah.
that. We live in a condo, so I don't have a giant garden, but a big enough one. And I think our company and our team, which unfortunately is smaller than it was, is actually, gosh, we know each other a lot better now, right? And I know their kids.
Yeah.
I know they're,
You see them jumping.
yeah, yeah. And I think we've spent quite a bit of time over the last little while trying to, be more compassionate, more helpful, kinder. So that's kind of what I've been up to, I guess.
Yeah, and that last comment, fortunately, is something that's coming up quite a bit. People being not only more mindful, but with a bigger sense of community and helping each other, which is already like some very Canadian values. So I think I should ask more people globally if they're doing the same thing. If the French are picking up the groceries for the old lady at the corner.
Yeah.
Hopefully they do as well. But thank you so much, Sue, for taking the time, sharing your thoughts, and it was absolutely lovely to see you.
You too. I know this was about you asking me questions, but by the looks of it, you look like everything is going really well, and I'd love to hear more about what's happening at Roar. And but thanks for the opportunity. This was nice.
No, that was wonderful. Thank you so much. Take care. Talk to you very soon.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.